Miami, 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 Miami. It feels like Miami.
Welcome to the Heat Beat Podcast. I'm your host, Giancarlo Navas, and with me today, we have the great Siobhan. Siobhan, welcome back. It's been a minute.
Hi, G. What's up? Hey, people. Hey, pod audience. It has been a while. Just been ripping and running, man.
Life comes at us fast, man. There's, one day we're not doing that much, and the next day, shit's all over us. So glad to have Bond back here. I couldn't think of anybody. I actually specifically asked Siobhan to come on today because I wanted, and we've been trying to get her on to talk hoops, to get into the nitty-gritty of the game we love so much.
Let's do it.
It's a privilege, guys. I mean, I've thought about this. I was talking to some friends the other day, Siobhan, and I was like, we were talking about another sport, and I just made me realize how lucky we are to cover a team like Miami that just does so much winning, and that they're always competitive and in the mix. And we have a litany of memories to choose from. I tweeted out a poll the other day of which was Miami's best individual performance, and I put Wade's game 3. I put Jimmy's game 5, and I put LeBron's game 6. And it's just like really, Miami has so much history and it has so much going for it that I'm just always really thankful. As we have another pod person, I'm going to get them here in a second. But I'm just thankful for that. I'm just thankful for the team that we cover and all the great stuff that we get to kind of experience.
Yeah, to remain competitive and do it with dignity and with some character, right? And to do it in a way that you can feel, respected by, or like to feel a level of respect for the organization, right? Never tanked, get all that bullshit out of here. Even through probably some years where probably some people in the fan base would have preferred to tank. They never did that. They never tried to throw games. To remain competitive in like different phases of the Heat organization, and to see themselves right back kind of like smack in the middle of this iteration of Heat success. It's cool. It's really fun. I know, not looking ahead at all, but I was thinking about just the idea of the Dallas matchup and the trilogy that would be in from like different decades and like just different time periods of kind of Heat dominance or at least Heat, relevance. That can say that same type of thing.
We have Brian Goins joining the program. Brian, I didn't know you were on today. I'm sorry.
I signed up, man.
I know you did, but I thought you were out when we were supposed to have Rohan on today, but Rohan.
Oh, don't say that to the audience. Now they're gonna be super sad about it. I'm already.
Well, Rohan's coming on. Rohan's coming on Wednesday. We talked about it. Ro is on a flight from Phoenix, and we know that flights get delayed a lot. Why is it just me or are flights getting like super delayed lately?
Yeah, they're overbooking all these flights, and they don't have enough people. You should know this. You've been on a bunch of flights since the pandemic started. You realize that people don't want to work right now, and people are calling out. They don't have enough pilots and enough flight attendants and stuff.
Labor shortage.
It's pretty scary. I'm flying to Chicago this weekend, and when I come back, I'm flying back Monday, and I'm supposed to get to Miami around like 2:30, and I'm kind of worried that if my flight gets delayed, I might miss game. What is it? Game 5.
Aren't you trying to watch it at the what's the
airport?
No, I was.
Oh no, they're not playing Milwaukee.
They're not playing Milwaukee. The idea was I'm going to Chicago for other stuff, and I was going to try to swing a trip to Milwaukee if they played in the conference finals, but that is not happening. Chat saying what's up. We have a series to talk about.
Bro, we have way too much to talk about. I've been listening to way too many podcasts today, and we need to get to some of these takes.
Well, let's start with Miami. Let's start with how Miami's going to defend Boston, because I think that's going to be the most interesting thing. So we're going to kind of start from there and move out. I think Miami's championship equity starts on defense, and that's where I think that we need to start. What people might, I think Eric Spoelstra said that this might be one of the defensive classics we have ever seen. So Siobhan, let's start there with Miami. Miami, of course, likes to switch a ton. I think Boston's half-court offense, I think, is 10th. Miami's is 11th. They're pretty similar in kind of their weaknesses. They, for as good as Jason Tatum is, he's not a get to the cup kind of guy. He's more mellow than he is D Wade in that sense. Jimmy doesn't really have Jimmy's been on a tear lately, but for the most of the season, Jimmy, other than Jimmy, Miami didn't really have like a rim pressure. And I think Boston kind of suffers from the same thing. So let's start there. Miami's strength is preventing guys from getting to the rim. It's from switching. Boston, a little short on shooting. Derek White in the lineup. Again, Marcus Smart, not the most. We've seen Marcus shoot them out of games. Where do you think Miami's win conditions are on defense, Bon? Because I think this could go a lot of ways. I know that's a broad question, but I kind of want to give you the floor to kind of steer where you want to talk about them defensively.
So everything that you just said, starting to kind of begin with, is why I think prefer this matchup, because I think, like you said, they are similar in ways and deficient in ways that, if the opposing team can poke at and just annoy the fuck out of those deficiencies enough, I think they'll start to show themselves. And so, Miami predicating themselves on not letting action get toward the paint, get toward the basket, and Boston, like you said, Tatum's not a guy that's going to get you to the cup, but he'll give you, a couple really clean and polished looks and maybe give you something from the mid-range. Jalen's three appears to, have gotten, consistent in those things. Horford is a pick and pop threat. And so I think, individually, I think I like our guys one-on-one, because I think our collective team principles are always going to be there to buoy that. I watched some of some Boston stuff against Milwaukee in Game 7, and they're a good defensive team. But I think a lot of that is kind of predicated on Marcus Smart and some of their one-on-one matchups, which I don't even know that they flat out win those outright. Like I'm watching. A couple passes away, Jaylen Brown's, is a lot of neck turning and like guys getting lost. And so I think I'd like to see us, guard them straight up, one-to-one, at least to start, and kind of see what that gives you. I expect it to almost feel like, playing against ourselves in like a scrimmage, inter squad type of thing. I'm trying to think of matchups. Who did Boston start, or who do we foresee Boston starting? And go ahead.
Brian, were you going to say something?
No, I was gonna piggyback on there's a lot of stuff we can piggyback on what Siobhan said. There's a lot of talking points here. But to answer her last question, basically when it looks like Robert Williams, based on what Udoka said in his presser, he says that he's available to play and there's no minute restriction for him. So I'm anticipating that Grant Williams is going to be back on the bench, and they'll probably be starting Robert Williams instead over Grant. Now, the question is whether or not Marcus Smart plays tomorrow. He's questionable with it was a left foot sprain injury, something like that. Yeah. He had an MRI, came back clean, but it's possible he misses game 1.
Somebody said he was in a walking boot after the game, but nobody verified that. It was just like a Celtic Twitter thing.
I think it was an actual Celtic reporter that posted that.
Okay. So
I wouldn't. If he's going for an MRI and he has it's possible that he has a Lisfranc injury, which it could be bad if he continues playing on it. But obviously he's going to try. But it's possible that he could end up having a similar injury that Goran had.
Oh, I would not wish that on anybody. I know that Celtic fans. I'm talking to some of my group chats with Celtic fans, and they're like, "Thank God Goran's gone. Goran has left those people scarred." Gogi absolutely ripped their heart out. I did not know that they felt that way about Goran. They're like, "Oh, thank God." Just anybody but
great.
Him. Yeah, they don't even feel that way about Bam. They're like, "No, yeah, Bam was great, but Gogi."
That's why we were all so upset when he got injured game 1 that we didn't really have a chance against the Lakers, because that's how good he was that series, and Bam especially. Like, both those guys go down game 1 in the finals. Like, how else are we supposed to react?
I think one of the important things about that series was Goran's step back. Siobhan, I don't know if you remember.
Oh, yeah.
Goran started doing that little step back 3, and he was just bombing it. And he always had that in the bag.
It was like a very unaccounted for move for him.
It came out of nowhere.
I'm like, cool. Let's ride this. All right. Again? Oh, shit.
But I think I think the matchup thing is a really interesting question, Siobhan, because I haven't really figured out what the preferred lineup would be for Miami if Robert Williams is in the lineup.
So I am
starting lineup.
Brian.
What's the matchup?
I imagine it's going to be Derek White probably starts in place of Marcus Smart.
Yeah, but I mean, regardless, you have a point guard. I mean, the point guard, like that doesn't matter to me. It's the bigs. Like, who do you? Because ideally you want PJ and Tatum.
Well, ideally, for Miami, it does matter because if you can, like, I know I get what you're saying about like accounting for the bigs, and so if I have to account for a point guard a little less than I would have, then I can throw more at the big or whomever, if that's who I want. G, what do you think about how they defend us?
Well, how they defend us, I think, is pretty.
Oh no! I'm sorry. What was the initial
how we defend them? I mean, I think it's going to be a lot of switches, and I think that you want PJ on Jason Tatum, and you want Bam on the primary screener. So if Rob starts, whoever's or what they may do is they may put PJ on the screener. So maybe PJ guards Rob and Bam guards Horford or vice versa, so they can get that switch onto Tatum, and then Jimmy's just on Tatum straight up. So they have like a three-way switch that they always like. So that's kind of what I anticipate. I think they want to keep a guy on them. And I think for Miami, when they defend Boston, I think even back when Stevens was the coach, they put Jalen in the corner. And Miami has always helped up. I mean, since the Jimmy era, Miami helps off corners. They kind of come in, dig, all that stuff. And Jalen is not a guy. He's not like a slitherer, right? Like D-Wade and Tyler, right? They can kind of zigzag their way, kind of get by guys. And Jimmy, too, has a little bit of that. Jalen's like a line drive kind of guy. Like Jalen can go from A to B really fast, really athletic. And he's not doing the little artsy thing. So when Miami closes out, right? So if they help off of Jaylen Brown, and then the ball finds Jalen, he's going A to B, and he's destroyed Miami. I think pretty consistently he's been the guy that has been the thorn in their side. Whether it's coming in for offensive rebounds, right? Because whoever that help guy is, he's getting by him, and he's already in rebound position, or just as a guy that's just attacking a closeout. So that to me, I think is, let's see what they do. I'm pretty sure they're going to play their base bond for that. And I think they'll adjust as the series go on. Maybe they send a little less help. Maybe they might be crazy and just put Bam like in a better help position so they can get more size on the closeout.
Didn't they try doing that in that bubble run? I believe they put Bam on Jalen at first. I feel like that happened at some point in that series.
But if you put Bam on Jalen, and if they're sending Jalen in the corner, then it doesn't negate Bam being able to help the role, but it moves him from where you want him helping with the role at. Because Jalen isn't a slither, and again, I don't know who Miami starts. I'm sure Gabe.
Kyle would normally start on Gabe. Yeah,
so I'm accounting for not Kyle.
I think Gabe's gonna be on Derek, and they may put Max on Jalen just because of the size. I think that Gabe gives up too much size.
I think, that is the matchup that it's stuck in my head. Just is what I would do. I put Max on Jalen because he isn't, like you said, primarily because he isn't a slitherer. He isn't someone that's going to break you down with a bunch of dribbles. He is going to give you that straight line kind of rip through A to B. Probably give you some shoulder, give you some body, but Max has enough of a body and has grown, I think, enough defensively to understand that you're stunning at that roller. I don't need you like fully committing, and then when you do commit your closeout, I need you to be closeout under control. And whatever our closeout principles are we forcing baseline, are we forcing back to middle so we can usher back into help? Like I think I trust Max to handle that kind of part of that assignment between helping off from the corner and getting back and in good position to close out for the three.
Brian, I think Oladipo probably spent some time on Jalen.
Oh, absolutely.
So
he did a great job on James Harden, so I imagine he could hold on his own matchup against Jalen. Obviously, Jalen's going to have a good series.
Jalen's more athletic and
Jalen's going
bigger.
to have a more efficient series than probably Harden had this past one. But in a way, I think Miami can hold them just about the same in terms of like output, of like just like the output. Like I don't think I'm expecting Jalen to go off for like 25 in a series like consistently, but he's gonna have a couple big games. So that's what you have to basically limit. How many of those 25, 30-point games can you limit from him, and how many of those like sub 20s but on like low efficiency can you get out of Jalen? And the same with Jason Tatum too. Like Tatum, and what's great about this series in particular compared to the Milwaukee series is honestly Miami has done a great job on Tatum for pretty much the entire time I've seen them match up against
even in the playoffs.
There's been like 2 games where he's been, especially in the playoffs. But there's been really 2 games that I can go back and look at that Jason just like went off because he just went crazy from 3. And that's basically like his recipe for success in this series is Jason's gonna have to shoot the lights out from 3 in order to get the most efficiency out of this defense that he's gonna have to face.
And that's how he attacked. That's how they attacked Milwaukee. And watching that game, and I like, okay, how much of the shooting does Jason have in him? And shooting's not really something that I will question a dude that can shoot to do if you have space, especially if you're coming off of the type of looks that you come off of. But that is a lot of what they went to.
They shot a little bit above their weight in that series.
There was a lot of interesting stats about their efficiency from 3. They were shooting 30, like about 3 or 4% better than they were in the regular season. Miami was obviously shooting way worse than that, or like down 8% from the regular season percentages.
Looks. People worked out.
And from what I saw, I think they outshot. Let me have to pull up.
It was like by 54.
Like 54 points. It was like the most ever in a playoff series, is what I read.
Well, hold on, wait a second. Slumpin' Sabas says y'all got that scared energy today. We're talking about how they're going to defend them. I don't. Siobhan's certainly not scared. I don't think Brian's scared. I think if anybody's a little worried, it's me. But Bond is the most confident I've ever seen her talking about a series. Bond's out here like, gee, why are you scared? And I was like, take some. Lead us.
The Milwaukee series gives me, just me personally, would have given me something else to feel different about, even without Chris. But Miami, I really feel like it'll be like, it should be like the red versus white in the squad. They do so many. They mirror each other in a few ways.
So that Celtics. I just really want to read it real quick, and then we can get into your next topic. But it was the Celtics made 53 more 3-pointers than the Bucks in the last series, per ESPN Stats Info. That's the largest differential in 3-point field goal made in a single series in NBA postseason history.
I think
take that for data.
I take that for data. I think Miami has easier times with Tatum types because I think quickness is their kryptonite.
Easier time defending, or
because quick guys, those how would I describe, like a mid-range maestro or what, those guys who are like those footwork monsters, those guys who operate in the middle area.
Very technical, very skilled in the mid-range.
PJ is built for those matchups because he's strong as all hell. He's physical. He pushes you off your spots, and he gets into you. And again, guys like Durant are going to do that to everybody, right? Because guys like KD are just special. Tatum's not KD levels, but he's getting there. But just the physicality, he's a young guy too, you know what I mean? So kind of test him. Test how much you can get away with physically. I think on guys like that who depend on the jump shooting, PJ and Bam's physicality on those switches, Jimmy's physicality, although you want Jimmy. And what Miami does really well is they'll have a guy at the nail. And for those who don't know, the nail is a free throw line. So, the way that they have their defense positioned, there's usually a guy waiting around the nail. And when a guy gets into their mid-range kind of bag, look at Joel Embiid. He kind of post up, Miami did not let him get deep post-ups after they went away from the fronting with small guys. They had him get post position in like the elbow area. And when he's in the elbow area, your help comes really quick. And Miami's really good at positioning their help in places like that. So a guy like Tatum, I imagine once he makes his move, right? So he's going to have his back. He's going to do his jab step. He's going to kind of set up shop. And then Jimmy, PJ, Max, whoever's at that nail is going to start shading in and coming. And when he makes that move, it's four hands. You know what I mean?
On the gather. Yep, on the gather into the shot, which is why I'm not, because I feel like, that is where they're going to have to attack Miami defensively. But I think Miami has and is built for covering up those gaps in people's spaces.
I talked to a Celtics guy, and he was telling me, he's like, because I kind of said, I think
there's only one Celtics guy I can think of, G.
And you don't know my source. And I was saying, I think that Marcus Smart being out potentially game one might help you, because if you can get a little more shooting on the floor, you can keep Derek White, and it just becomes a little harder to defend if he's your only minus shooter on the floor, and you can get a little more offense, and now you're getting Miami in more rotations, and you just have enough good, smart guys who cut, who play basketball, that you can get a little bit more offense going, and I think your defense is good enough, because Miami's half-court offense isn't, we're not world-beating. You know what I mean? They're kind of eking by their half-court offenses, and they told me, I'm not worried about them on defense without Smart. I'm worried about them on offense, because Smart does a lot of their pick and roll triggering. And it was something I did not consider in the way that Miami would defend them. Smart's a very physical guy. He can get downhill. Miami does dare him to hit shots. And listen, there have been games where Marcus Smart hits. He's 6 of 10, right? And you're just like, okay. And other days he's 2 of 11, right? So there's that high level variance. But without Smart, it kind of forces Derek White and Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown to kind of split those triggering duties. And I think Jason would rather play off ball and kind of have kind of like how Jimmy should be. You know what I mean? Like how Jimmy wants to come off of something to get the ball in motion or get it off in action. So that's something I would look for as well in this series without Marcus. How does their offense look, and who's triggering these sets?
And I think Marcus gives them, while he, like you said, there's a high level of variance, and his percentages aren't too crazily consistent. I think he gives them, or at least throughout the series that just passed, and some of the games that I've caught, some of the Boston games I've caught this season, I think he gives them timely threes. And so while keying, right, while triggering their offense, giving him what he gives them defensively, and, giving you something timely either from the corner or just above the break, and what that does for energy and momentum, and kind of morale and all of that. I think maybe that's a little understated, not by you, but just kind of in general, with regards to consistency with shooting. Miami's half-court offense isn't world beaters, but I don't know that they are deficient enough to think that you can live with kind of like, a negative defender in spot of what was, your defensive player of the year. And so, I think Derek White might give them a bit more spacing, but I think, he maybe gives them or gives up something down there that Miami might be able to go at. And not in a way that stagnates and stales the whole offense, but just another kind of weak spot in their net.
Brian, what were you going to say?
There is actually an interesting trend that I've been watching or listening to a lot of different Boston podcasts, just trying to figure out what are some like the holes on their team in terms of like whatever flaws that they might have. And one of the big things that they've been mentioning, apparently Jaylen Brown's having a hard time dribbling the ball. His handling has basically been an issue since the first round against the Nets, and it became even a bigger issue in the Bucks series. Game 1, he had 7 turnovers. I'm looking at the stat line right now. And biggest thing that they were able to do in that game, and what really they were saying like why when Milwaukee never actually went back to it, but they were full court pressing him in a lot of those sets. So they basically were saying like, there was a lot of times where it almost seemed like they were going to be in an 8-second violation, just bringing the ball up, half court. And it was something that they basically just like noted, and they never really went back to it that much, especially towards games 6 and 7. Like they probably could have done that because it was something that was happening with Jaylen Brown and his ball handling. So I think it's something Miami's we've already seen it happen the first 2 series of them using full court presses. So I could imagine that supposing to look at that, he might try to use PJ, Gabe, obviously Caleb in those situations.
And even in the half court, right? Miami likes to do some of that blitzing and some of that trapping stuff. If your handle's shaky, then, forcing you out past half and maybe, make you give it up, turn you over.
If Marcus is not playing game 1, that's one less ball handler to have.
I think that people, it wasn't until like the value of having multiple ball handlers is really an Eric Spoelstra special. And I think the more that you can take away from them having ball handlers, just the better Miami's defense functions as a whole. Agree. If they're going to press, which I think they'll do some, they'll probably take turns with kind of Gabe and Caleb, like you said. I agree. Last thing I want to get into before we transition into Miami's offense, Grant Williams has become a really good 3-point shooter. And I think at this point, I know that he had the huge game, but even leading up to that, he's just been a really consistent shooter since about January. I think we are to assume that that's real. And, he's stationed in the corner a lot, right? Whenever he plays, whether he starts or not. I mean, I think it's up for debate, if he starts with Rob or if Al Horford. I think there's a lot that can go. I think if they want to be a little more switchy, they'll go with Grant. If not, they'll go with Al. I mean, they provide very good different things. Al's been really good for them. And, maybe they might want to match Al with Dedmon because Dedmon really killed them on the boards. And really in pick and roll. We'll talk about that more in the offense. But Grant Williams is a good shooter. Miami's going to help off a lot of him. He has a little bit of size. He's not a small guy. And I think that's another area where Miami's kind of struggled a little bit, where you kind of close down bigger guys. Because if that closeout guy is Gabe or that closeout guy is Lowry, who we don't know if he's his status or one of those smaller guys, Hero, that becomes a little untenable. So that's just something for you to, I think, to look for, and by the way, I mean, they did a fantastic job on Danny Green. I thought, other than the 2 games that Danny went off in Philly, and Danny's a great shooter, and great shooters are going to shoot great. He's no Danny Green, but he's been really good. So it's just something to keep an eye on, and maybe for Heat fans not to overreact, because also if Grant Williams is really doing a lot of the shooting in an offense, I just think that's probably a win for Miami. I think as long as you get the ball away from Tatum and Brown beating you on the glass, at the rim, at the free throw line, and if you're really increasing their diet of Grant Williams threes, I think eventually your math is probably going to work out as the scheme adjusts and as guys get quicker and all that. So, something to look out for. I don't know if you guys want anything to add before we kind of transition to offense.
Yeah, if you want to talk about Grant Williams' shooting, I'm just looking at his game logs. It really seems like he's only had one good game shooting on the road. Most of his impact is coming at home. So that's something that I think Miami might possibly leave him more open, at home compared to maybe on the road. It seems like that's the case for a lot of their shooters, and it's the same thing for Miami's shooters. It's like they play way better at home, and a lot of these role players step up when they're not on the road. So
there's one shooter that plays better on the road.
Max Strus?
No, Duncan, but yeah.
Oh, well, Max has been pretty good lately.
Max,
I will give him credits for that.
Shout out to Max.
But yeah, like his one game that he went off was against the Nets. It was game 3. He went 4 for 6. And everything else, he's been pretty much average to below average. So I think Miami lives with Grant Williams. If there's a lot of these games, he's only taking 2 or 3 shots from 3 or less, actually. He's taking 1 shot. So game 6, he took 1 3-pointer attempt before. He took 18 this last game.
That was crazy. Siobhan, did you see that? Did you see that the number was 18?
And I thought it was a mistake. I thought that was like team free throw or like collective.
Right?
No. But then I heard his post game or a clip of him after. He's like, "Yeah, he just told me to keep shooting." I was like, well, all right.
That's such a coach thing to say. Keep shooting.
But there's no way he's going to keep that kind of volume up. So,
and if you do, if you're Miami,
if he keeps up for 4 wins, then yeah, give him the fucking.
Let's not forget,
and he gets a Larry Bird trophy with it. That's what happens.
Brian, let's not forget it took Spo 6 games to budge on Gary Neal and Danny Green. It took them 6 games because remember they were helping off of back in the day they were helping off of Danny and they were doubling Duncan every time he touched the ball. Tim Duncan. For you young folks.
Those first teams had way more talent than this Boston team.
It's more of like, we've seen Spo adjust. So if they're getting lit up by a guy for 6 games or 5 games or whatever, know that, we've seen this coach, even in a younger spot, say, okay, fuck the game plan. We're fixing this because we cannot win. So
that is actually what happened in this Philly series. So I mean, I'm sure Siobhan, you heard the quote from PJ. PJ was like, basically they asked him like, "Oh, what'd you guys do? What'd you talk about between you, Jimmy, and Bam?" I was like,
right.
what was the defensive adjustment? Obviously, you couldn't spill the beans, but basically it was you gotta stop making sure that James Harden goes off on you in the fourth quarter because he had a lot of crazy shots. You obviously got to make sure that Joel Embiid doesn't get 2 feet from the paint, so he gets an easy lay-in or starts getting a bunch of fouls, and you don't really have a shot of defending him because he's just dragging everything inside the paint, getting foul calls and flopping. And then the last piece was the Danny Green piece, which you were mentioning, and I think it's the same thing with Grant Williams. If he's going to get these wide-open corner shots and he's making them, then you have to adjust. So Miami knows this.
Yeah. Siobhan, did you have anything before we transition to offense? So let's talk about Miami's offense because I watched a lot of film on Heat Celtics today, and I tried to just keep it to where Jimmy played. So a couple things of the non-Jimmy game. Rob Williams, the way that they utilize Rob on defense is have him in a corner, kind of switching off ball, and they keep him on the weak side to come help off drives. And it's been really fruitful for them. They keep Al or they keep whoever their wings, up top and kind of, defend that way. And then Rob is coming in to help from the corner. He'll switch anything because he can switch, and they'll be like, I dare you to get by me. Caleb Martin, that game, was like, all right, bet. And Caleb went at that dude and got by him every single time. And they lost that game in a blowout, and it was whatever. Everybody's like, that's a throwaway game. Not that Caleb can do that, because I don't think Caleb's athletically that guy right now. But going at him, if their offense... I just wanted to start there because I think the Rob Williams piece is interesting. He was attacked that game, and when guys who are like usually or used to being feared get attacked, everything starts being shaky. Look at Utah, right? This is just look at Phoenix. They were hunting Chris Paul. You know what I mean? Like, that's not a matchup that Chris Paul's like it just throws you off kilter. So that's one thing that I would look at, and it was a weird place to start because there's a lot. But Bond, is there anything about that gives you confidence? Because Miami's going to have trouble scoring in this series, just as Boston is. It's going to be a rock fight, and it's all about finding soft spots defensively where you can find enough to score.
And so those soft spots, I like to, when I think about basketball, I think of the players as like having this sphere around them, like they have a diameter around them. And so where the defense is positioned, where their diameters meet that kind of, diamond shape in between, those soft spots, those are the areas that you got to kind of get into. With someone like a Giannis, right, he's so long that his diameter is kind of a bit bigger. So maybe those soft spots are a bit further out. And so I think that while we saw, we've been seeing Miami do a lot of empty side stuff, a lot of empty corner stuff, in a way to kind of isolate guys. And I don't know that. So maybe they utilize their offense in a way to kind of bend what Boston wants to do defensively, or maybe they kind of let Boston do what it is that they think that they want to do. Maybe you don't go so much empty side. Maybe you have a shooter in one corner and a Caleb or a Vic or someone else that can attack off of the secondary drive, off the the bend of the defense in the other corner. And maybe you bait Rob into those closeouts, having confidence that your guys can get by. I think there is something to kind of the pricking of the mystique around some of these guys. And like someone said that like Pat Bev don't defend. He just be out here like yelling and making quick movements and making you think.
Even like Russell Westbrook?
Yeah, hey, there's a bunch of people that you can.
No, but Russ, I think Russ said that way. I think the quote you're
talking about.
Yeah, Russ is like, he just be running around saying stuff.
He just be running, Pat Bev just be fooling y'all. Yes, absolutely. And so, damn, I don't even know how I got into that.
Yeah,
but no, I think that maybe you kind of bait them in, or at least in game one, fill them out. If that's what they want to do, you have confidence, and maybe it's not a getting all the way to the rim. Doing so in a time that allows the rest of the defense to collapse. Maybe it is kind of sweeping through and getting past and right into that soft spot. Maybe we see some one dribble pull-ups. We should see, I think, a few more pull-ups, at least from the Miami side. In this, I think Jimmy should operate really well in kind of the extended post area. So I think it's going to be a rock fight. I believe it's going to be a rock fight, but I think our dudes are more suited for consecutive games of rock fights. Tatum's gotten, stronger. He's gotten tougher, right? All of that, but there's still some cuteness to him. Like, I don't know if he can take being pelted with rocks for, 7 straight games the way that I think Miami will. So I trust like the literal old dogs kind of, in our stable against the guys and pups.
If you think back to what happened in the bubble, like there was games where Tatum basically didn't even have like 10 points up until the end of the second quarter. Yeah. Barely entering halftime, he was barely in double digits.
Yeah,
I could see some of the same stuff happening where Miami really does limit him, and you're basically forcing the rest of these guys to show that they can score consistently.
Yeah, I really wouldn't be surprised if it was like a complete kind of shutting down and what it is that Boston likes to do or think that they can do.
The other spot that I think is interesting in the way that Boston defends is that Boston stays home on shooters. And it's just very different from Miami. And if you just, when I watched, Jimmy Dedmon pick and rolls, I was like, man, they're just like not even cheating off of PJ. Because I'm just used to it, right? I'm just used to PJ's man with a foot in the paint. And they're closer to PJ than they are, to the basket. Mm-hmm. And I was like, that's interesting. They're just staying home on shooters. And they're just, I think that benefits Jimmy a ton. I thought that's why the Dedmon minutes, they were so productive in the last game of the season.
Should benefit Bam. Bam should be able to operate. Bam should be able to like face up and get some stuff out of that.
They slipped him a lot. Siobhan, they slipped him more than they normally do against the Celtics because it just was more of a lane. Because when he slips, that help is
it's the best way to beat a switch.
You literally have a stretched floor, which they normally play in a little bit more cramped quarters because a lot of their shooting comes off motions and actions, not just like Houston Rockets, get guys in the corner and spread them out. So Bam was like kind of screening, faking, slipping, with Lowry, with Jimmy, with Tyler, all these guys, and that was interesting to me. Dedmon as well. When
who they should take some stuff loose for too, Tyler. Like if guys are staying home, the shooters, and if you have Tyler like initiating some of the PNR stuff and being able to get into those spaces and some of those pull-ups, he and Bam's 2-man chemistry, and that kind of like shorter horseshoe, beneath the arc.
Yeah,
I think we should be okay.
This is gonna sound funny, but Boston defended Tyler with Peyton Pritchard a lot. I was, watching the film, I was very impressed with Pritchard. I thought he got over screens very well. He fought really hard to get over. He kind of digs into Tyler. He's very physical. I think that shit goes out the window when it's Jimmy, when it's a guy who could just put him on his ass because he's too small and he's not strong enough. But a guy like Tyler, and even when they put him on a guy like Max, I thought Max was able to get clean jump shots because Max is just bigger. But he gets over screens, and when that game in particular, they had to run a drop because Rob was not in, and they were playing Al and they were playing Tice. And Miami, I thought that was the most concerted effort I had seen them up to that point, saying, okay, we are gonna find the drop man and we are gonna fucking bludgeon them to death. And they forced Boston to just say, okay, one big, fine. And that was at a time where they were just when Rob had just gotten hurt and they were used to playing a certain style. Miami kind of forced them into a little bit of uncomfortableness. They're gonna have some seams there, and Brian, I don't know if you want to add on to any of this. They have seams to score. And Tyler might have a tough time with. I don't see this as a Tyler series, although if he can get going, that'd be huge. I see this as a Jimmy and Bam series. I have questions. We can talk about Kyle and what they'll miss, but they certainly have avenues where they can score, even though the Celtic wing defenders are just incredible. Brian?
I think as much as I want Jimmy to have a great scoring series, and I think he will, I think Miami still does need to force some stats, probably more than they were doing these first two series. And I know the Philly series was weird defensive coverage where they were doubling him a lot. And they did a similar thing in the Hawks series too. But as much as I want Bam to be that guy, that second guy, I think they need to at least see what they can get from Tyler early on in the series before they kind of like nuke his minutes. So give him like his regular season minutes, see what he can give you on offense. Yeah, for Tyler, because I think if he can get him going early on in the series, that could bode well for the rest of the series in terms of his confidence. And I think that, to me, is going to be huge because he hasn't had a great full-on. He's had like one or two games that have been pretty up to his standards in terms of his performance and his efficiency. What's really shocking is that his mid-range efficiency is like top 4 right now for the entire playoffs in terms of everybody that's played. He's like 52% right now. Number 1 was Chris Paul, like 70%, which is fucking insane. But I think that those are things and I know. Boston actually, one of their soft spots in terms of their defensive coverages is the mid-range. They give up a lot of mid-range shots, and it has to do with the way that they switch. And obviously they don't switch every single possession because when Al Horford's in the game, they do play some drop. So it's not going to be just switch every single time Miami's on the floor. They're going to see some drop, and that's when Tyler actually needs to make sure he hits his open shots, because he's going to have them at certain points in these games.
But that's where the Pritchard things comes into play, though. Like, he was just really good. And they're just really – I mean, Marcus Smart is a guy who's also really good at kind of screen navigating and stuff like that. So, you know, kind of like in Wes Matthews, you know, really kind of physical and kind of getting over. And they're going to –
I think Tyler has the capability to win that one-on-one matchup. I think if you start introducing a lot of screens for Tyler with the switch – then it starts to be a little more difficult, because obviously you have to reset. You're wasting a lot of shot clock, and then you probably are swinging that pass over. So I think the key for Tyler in the series, you need to see what he can do on a one-on-one with that simple like screen, unless it's like a really like obviously it's Bam and he's able to like really beat that man. Like basically if they're doing like maybe a dribble handoff action for him, and then he's able to come off of that, and he's basically going down the paint pretty easily, or if they do a simple slip with Bam and they're able to get him going to that way, that could be a way that they could open up the offense. But I think for sure outside of Jimmy, I think Jimmy's going to have a great series. I think he could still average around 30 like he's been in the entire playoffs against this Boston team. I just really think Tyler has to have at least 3 games in this series that he's like above 20 points.
You know,
I think –
go ahead, Siobhan.
I think you – So one of the good parts about having someone that fights over top of the screen, that's an indicator that you are comfortable, playing in the drop. And so we've seen Tyler, or at least I have, be better able at navigating the screen. Maybe he doesn't fly off the screen all the way, all that tight. Maybe he kind of stops himself, dribbles back a little bit into the path. Maybe he welcomes a little bit of the bump. Maybe he gets Peyton in some foul trouble. Kind of the way that he likes to go for his layups is kind of little extended package. He and Bam should have really good lob chemistry. If someone is chasing me off the screen and I don't feel comfortable stopping and popping like at the third hash, at the free throw line, as I'm maintaining my dribble closer to the basket, I need to at some point get comfortable with a runner that I should be about to take, or this, kind of 2-foot lob to my left. But Brian, what you were saying about them being a little soft in the mid-range is why I do think it could be kind of a Tyler opening, a cracking open of him with regards to what we've seen from him. And then for real, like bring that screen high. If they're staying home on shooters, maybe you don't do all of your typical action, at least to start. See how they're going to defend kind of some stationary bodies with a high ball screen. Are you still going to fight over that? Are you still playing me in that drop? Because now if I'm bringing it out higher, you're fighting over higher up, which means your drop man still has to be higher, so that pocket for the pull-up is a bit more open and a bit more comfortable, and you have some dump off. And then eventually people are going to have to help or they're not. So I think that they should – I really think that they should I want to say almost like slice them up, and not in a disrespectful way, but I see them being – potentially really efficient with their offense this season. I
don't envision them seeing a ton of drop this series. I know Al will play it, and they'll look for that in the Horford minutes. I imagine the adjustment is just going to be play Al higher up, and then we know the counter to that is Bam slipping because of the way that the Celtics get stretched out. And if that is the case, then all of a sudden Boston's just playing a scheme that they're not super used to, and Miami likes when guys help off their shooters, because
they play Marcus in some like drop and get backs too. I was watching it, the Celtics, like he stunts and then drops back to the roller. I don't know if there's something in there that they can exploit.
That'll be interesting. Again, like and that's kind of seeing what Marcus's availability. Maybe if his foot's not 100, they can't do stuff like that, and they may just play stuff more straight up. I think Jimmy and pick and roll is just easy money in the series. It's going to be their best offense without Lowry. I think Jimmy finding Derek White on switches is just going to be, especially
empty corner sets for Jimmy, is going to be awesome.
I mean, that's just really their bread and butter anyway. And if Boston's not going to, and if Boston is stretched out so much, Brian, it's not even, they don't even need to do that, because the point of that is just to kind of get help off of you. But if Boston's just going to be stretched out anyway, then they don't need to run those sets. What they need to do is probably run some more hammers, get some shooters open, and kind of move their guys around, because what Boston's trying to do is Boston's like, okay, let's try not for you to kind of get dribble penetration and then kickouts, because that's when threes, and they'll switch handoffs and stuff like that. Miami, by the way, in the postseason, have the most handoffs. They have the highest frequency, the most possessions. So frequency percentage, so that includes all the teams that have played, and by far the most possessions. And in terms of points per possession, they're at .86, which is the 50th percentile of playoff teams, so smack in the middle. Not super great. Part of that has just been their bad shooting performances, although I think that they've kind of moved off of that in the Philly series. So kind of curious what they do in the Celtics series. Let's talk about, to close out the show, what they're going to miss with Lowry. I think that, one of their best offenses against a great defense is to get out and to push. And Kyle, the hit aheads with him and Bam specifically, to quote Eric Reed, the giddy up offense, when Kyle or Bam get a rebound and it's off to the races, it's kind of get down the floor. It's playing those in-between zones really, really well. That's the stuff that they can take advantage of, because I think, especially late in the game, nothing's going to come for free. And if they can force enough misses and they can push, I trust their guys to push more than Boston's guys, especially. And that might be the way to get their shooters going as well, because if they're gonna stay home on shooters, kind of get their guys out of rhythm, the way to get them into rhythm is transition opportunities, threes, all that stuff. So that's one area where I think Kyle's going to be missed. Siobhan, the other, the pick and roll trigger is going to be a lot of Jimmy, but I worry about Bam, because I think Kyle's just a better playmaker for Bam in those sets, and the slip and go just works better, because they respect Kyle's jump shooting more than Jimmy's. And that cramps that space a little bit. I think late in game, having an extra ball handler against a frenzied switch defense is just always valuable, because, Miami, I think, needs a couple cracks at a possession to find what they want to do. And Kyle gets them into sets early. We've talked about it all year. And they kind of, I don't think and by the way, our friend Krishna over at Basketball Index was saying that Miami has the best offense against switches, which I thought was absolutely absurd when he said that to me. And I asked him to pull the data, and he's like, yeah, the Heat were top 5.
Why didn't we lead the show with this?
In points per chance against switching defenses. It's crazy. I didn't ask him if I asked him if it was for playoffs or regular season, so I'm waiting to get back on me on that. But I mean, that's pretty insane for them. But without Kyle,
8-4.
Siobhan, I imagine that's a little tense. I worry about their offense without Kyle. I worry about having that extra shooter, especially a guy who can create off the dribble. And I think, again, late clock scenarios, you just need guys who can kind of do their own stuff. And I think they're going to be in a lot of late clock situations, decision maker, shooters, all that stuff. So I worry about them. How worried should I be? How worried are you? What do you think that looks like? Because I know we're trying to close out in the next couple minutes.
So this might be a case of not your guy versus my guy. I understand where a lot of your worry come from, but I am really, really not even trying to be homerish or like Gabe fanatic at all. I'm genuinely not. So the things with the kick ahead, right? There was a game honestly, I'm not sure how long ago. It wasn't too far. I remember it where Gabe missed an opportunity for a kick ahead. It was a game where Kyle wasn't playing, and Kyle yelled at him and told him, hey, that's the thing. But so Kyle does it well, but it's not something that only Kyle can do. And so if they're just cognizant and aware and eyes up on the rebounds, looking up, it's not a dimension of their offense that has to have disappeared entirely because Kyle isn't there to make the actual pass. It's still there. Get the rebound, look up, guys, get in good position, make good passes, actually be intentional with wanting to make the pass. And I think I understand the pick and roll navigation. Gabe has some better decision making to make for me, and I think he will, and he has shown it. But I think that they have enough ball handling. I don't think Jimmy has to trigger their pick and rolls for them. I really don't, or at least not a steady diet. Or I wouldn't start it that way. I would give your primary ball handlers the chance to kind of primary ball handle until you see that they're keying in on it, or it's not working, or what have you. I think they will be okay in the specific areas that you mentioned without Kyle.
My thing with Gabe is he doesn't rebound as well as Kyle, and I think that's a huge part of it as well. Like
but he's always there on the outlet.
No, for sure, but it's the rebound and go immediately, because that half second matters in the NBA.
It does.
And
it does.
Gabe, and again, I love Gabe. Like I'm a fan. I love him, and I've really come around on him. You know, and you were right the whole time. You know, his vision on the play is just not. Kyle's a vet. Kyle's a 20-year vet. You know, he's gonna get there, because I think Gabe is a really brilliant guy. Kyle just sees the window, and Tyler had that problem last year where and this is really Gabe's first year of real NBA experience, right? Like he's a real like full-time I'm dependent on every night kind of guy. So to me, this is almost like his first real season. And last year, you know, and it took Tyler a bit too. Tyler was a little better at it and still not great at it. You got to see the window a second before, not when it happens. And I think Gabe
you have to anticipate the window. You have to manipulate and get to the window,
which is where Gabe is not. And I think especially with an offense where Bam has to screen and slip, that is anticipation, and that is seeing the chessboard move, and you need to know a second before, because you got to get in. So that's the stuff, because I think Gabe as a defender is as reliable. I think Kyle's better at some stuff, and I think Gabe's better at some stuff. Part of that's the youth, and part of that's experience. It's youth versus experience, and I think Miami has a great mix of that. But in terms of like running, that's kind of the stuff I mean. And I think that, you know, if they were playing Milwaukee, I would feel a lot better, because I think Gabe, because against Milwaukee, Gabe would have more space because they just play a lot of drop. Brooks in the deep drop. And Gabe, I think, is really good at operating in that middle area. I think he's really, really good, and he's confident, he's fearless. I just think
if he can get to it.
He's also a little small, and I think if like Tatum's a switch or if Brown's a switch, that little size, and he's not as like Kyle's a grifter, right? Like Kyle's gonna fucking grift you to death. And I think even players know, and they're not trying to pick up a second foul, and they're not. You know, like Tatum knows. They had playoff battles against Kyle. They're not trying to fuck around and find out I'm going to pick a foul. Gabe's not like that. So Kyle gets a little bit more space just off of respect. So it's like little things like that I think are going to matter in the long term. That's just the stuff I worry about. Let's see how that plays out. They're going to need Gabe shooting for sure. And I think, you know, kind of Gabe coming off a screen and kind of getting into that pull-up is something they're going to need from him, Tyler, all that Max stuff. We got to go. It is 8 p.m. Thank you guys for coming. Remember, we have Weird Off pregame show tomorrow, 30 minutes before the game. Hangover Time, postgame show after. Check out Mixed Bag, Needle to the Groove. All our offerings here on Miami Heat Beat. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube page and all of that good stuff. Huh?
Come to Hoopstresses right now.
Come to Hoopstresses right now. Real quick, I know you got to go, Bon. What is your pick in the series?
In our series?
In our series. I know I put you on the spot.
I want to say 5, honestly. I'm really not too
worried.
I have 6. I'm a lock in
6?
P 6.
All right, Brian, what you got?
As much as I want to sell more Heat in 5 shirts, I'm probably going to go Heat in 6. I don't know, 6 or 7, probably 7. I think they close it at home.
Okay, that's interesting. So those are the picks. Make sure to check out all our offerings.
What's yours?
I don't pick. I'm superstitious, so I don't make.
Picks. I know what G's pick is.
I don't make public picks because I am superstitious, so I don't do. I just say stuff in private. I've never done, even when I think they're gonna win. I think the only
Let's just say every time that G picks, it's basically the opposite. He's like the Charles Barkley of Miami Heat.
Charles Barkley picked the Celtics. I will say that.
So we're going to the finals.
Chuck picked the Celtics. Congrats on us. Thank you for everybody. Check out Hoops for Siobhan. Where can people go listen to you right now if they want to hear some Twitter Spaces?
Sage and for it.
I'll put it up on the screen.
At Hoopstresses, HOPP. Yeah, HOOPSTRESSES. It sounds like a lot. Hoopstresses, like mistress, but
like
with
that.
hoops. Yep.
There we go. I spelled something right. So go right here, right now. Go follow them on Twitter. I'll make it as big as possible. Oh, never mind. That didn't work out. Okay. Well, follow Hoopstresses. They're great. Siobhan's great. We love everything that's going on over there. Make sure to check out all the good stuff. We will see you tomorrow for Miami Heat and Boston Celtics. Game 1.